So this past week we just had the Weiss Schwarz World Championship, and we're gonna be going over the data and looking over some of the implications it has on the upcoming summer festival metagame season, as well as the next BCS season. So I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in a bit. So before we begin, I just want to say thank you again for checking out my recent video on looking at or watching competitive gameplays in TCG. It was just a little helpful discussion on how to get better at competitive trading card game, or how to get into it and actually kind of just grow as a player if you decide to play Yu-Gi-Oh, Weiss Schwarz, Pokemon, Digimon, whatever card game you want to play at a competitive level. I hope that video is very helpful for you. So onto the topic for Weiss Schwarz World Championship. So the World Championship was actually a very interesting one this season. So going into the event, we already knew when Bunny Girl Senpai got released. In fact, when we saw this deck kind of rear its ugly head in the metagame post BCS, the BCS cycle, we already kind of knew in our heads that that deck was going to be the deck to beat, because of the fact that in Japan it was pretty much dominating, and so many of the competitive players were pretty much prepping for that matchup. It was the deck to beat on top of other ones. So when we look at the data that Bushiroad provides us, we noticed that out of the 60 players that attended the event, 17 played Bunny Girl Senpai, the Rascal series, that is. The second one was That Time I Got Reincarnated by the Slime. That was the second most represented deck. The third one was actually the Goddess of Victory Nikkei, which was another set that also came about. Many of us, including my friends, we thought it would be the deck, even though the deck was solved in Japan, which was the store standby build, we didn't think it would be played enough. But obviously, like 6 of them did get in there, and I think 1 or 2 made it to the top cutoff. I think it was the top 8 cutoff. And then there were 6 quintuplet decks, and it's your traditional Nino 8 standby deck. So and then there was about 40% that were other decks. So we don't know exactly the breakdown. I'll put the link in the description below the Weiss Tea Times list of decks that the players played, including the deck codes. We won't be going over it in this video, but if you would like me to go over it, break down some of them, comment below, and I'll definitely happily break it down for you guys. But what ultimately made it for the top cut, the top 8, was as followed: 1 7 Deadly Sins, 2 quintuplet decks, 1 Nikkei deck, 1 Macross Delta deck, 1 Bochi the Rock, and then 2 Bunny Girl Senpai decks. So ultimately, that was our top 8, and the one that was leading the top 8 before they played off was actually a Bunny Girl Senpai deck that went 6-0. But that player actually ended up in 4th place, and that list was actually fairly standard. In fact, I'll probably throw the deck list. You can probably you can check out that deck list in the description below. The one that actually was kind of surprising was to see Bochi make it into the top 8 for Worlds, going X1. I felt like a lot of people were pretty prepared for the Bunny Girl Senpai list, because even though it made up majority of like the bigger chunk of the appearance in the tournament, it did not like fare very well long run. Like it converted, I think, rather poorly than expected, with 2 making top 8 and I think 1 only making it to the top 4, the semifinals. So it was kind of interesting to see that pan out. I know my boy Riez, aka Ancestor of Weiss, he and I were talking about it. He did not do well. I'll probably have a video where he and I can debrief and discuss if he wants to. If you guys want to see that, comment below. I'll probably see if I can schedule time to discuss with him how his worlds run went through, and I'll probably check with the other players too, because I know quite a few of them. But what ultimately kind of the finals came down to was pretty much 7 Deadly Sins versus Nino, and it was kind of an interesting matchup. I saw bits and pieces of it. I'll probably react to it, film myself reacting to the matchup, because it was actually pretty interesting from what my friend was talking about. I'll probably do a live reaction to it. And ultimately what won was the 7 Deadly Sins, and we were already like talking about it when it got hit on the ban list, that they didn't hit the deck enough. And again, this is the second time not only did it top 2 the worlds, this time it actually won it, which is, I think this is the first or second time. I gotta double check. Let me actually do a quick check since we're here. I think this is the first time it won the world championship. I think in 2023 it was Gura, I think, that won the worlds for 2023. Yeah, Gura won worlds. It was followed by Slime last year, and then Avatar. I think it was the year before. It's been such an interesting season. So I think it was the 2022 worlds, if my memory kind of serves me. Let me just double check. I think it was 2022. It was 2022 when 7 Deadly Sins got 3rd. So this is actually the second time it breaches the top 8 and actually manages to do pretty well. And this time it is the Elizabeth Henriksen build, and that's been kind of like the consistent boogeyman for about 2-3 years already. And even with the hit with the choose of the stock swap and the Fumio, because the deck has a second Fumio in the form of Hawk, you just run the stock swap and you play the Hawk Fumio, and you pretty much get the same like level of like finishability, like closing, and same level of decompression, but you just don't have the free Fumio because you have to pay 2 instead of just tap 1 character, which is fine, I think, in the long run. Like, because the deck was really good at like managing stock because of the Elizabeth Climax combo, just shoving characters into the stock, like cards that you don't want to see. So it was already like favored to, like, it was basically Konosuba, because Konosuba also had like the stock swap Fumio pair, but it actually does a better job at resourcing early game. So it's kind of interesting to see that 7 Deadly Sins kind of just pretty much repeats the run by winning this time. A deck that I was actually surprised besides 7 Deadly Sins was actually Macross making it into the top 8. He got 5th place, which is really great. And like I've I haven't played Macross Delta myself, but I played against it quite a bit, and I've seen the deck pretty much do like if it does its like game plan, early game plan uninterrupted, it's very hard to beat. But if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much like punish their early game plan and at least make them go into very awkward deck states where they're not plussing as hard. And I've seen that happen so many times. I've done it so many times. Like a simple like mill backup, like a mill 5 backup is really helpful in that matchup, because you prevent them from plussing by after they swing in, because they'll have 2 cards remaining, which will allow them to salvage and then free fresh with the brainstorm. So if you were to just nail them on that, like before their free fresh and their salvage, you pretty much like they have to do it again. And if you punish it again, like that's how you pretty much like jam their early game up, is you literally force them to refresh early before they do they resolve their climax combos, and you put them in a very awkward deck state. Other than that, I'm not surprised about Nino. Nino is a really strong deck, and it's probably one of the few decks next to Seven Deadly Sins that I felt like had a really good Bunny Girl Senpai matchup. Not only does it produce walls, but with the consistent top 2 checks and the large number of soul triggers in the deck, you can pretty much put Bunny Girl Senpai in a very awkward state, because that deck literally requires you to play very slow. It's like Overlord, where except it actually doesn't have the weakness is not that glaring compared to Overlord, which is if you rush them down really early before they can set up, they have a hard time like maintaining advantage. But that's true with all like memory based decks. If you rush them down before they can meet their memory requirements for the finisher, you pretty much like have a very smooth sailing match with them. But again, Bunny Girl Senpai should not be mocked at. Like, the deck is still pretty good. Like, it can still recover. It's not as bad as Overlord, where if you rush them down, it's very hard for them to like re-pick up momentum. They'll be able to get the 4 or more different names into memory very easily, but if you rush them down just correctly, and if their deck state is that bad, it is very hard for them to get to the 4 memory. And I've noticed that when I'm playing the deck, it's really strong when it can do it, but the minute it can't get its game plan going, the deck really has a hard time like catching up. Like, I think that's one of the deck's weak spot, is that it's very hard to play from behind. You have to always be like, if you're way too far behind, it's very hard to recover with that deck. Unlike other decks where there's like a easier path to kind of fixing yourself, especially if you're behind and you're not canceling as needed when you need it. And I know Bunny Girl Senpai does have those tools, but because most of the decks are playing the Stakuta, which is the combination of the level 0 what's her name, Futaba, with the 1/0 Sakuta that shoves that Futaba into stock, you actually lose out in a lot of deck speed, which is actually kind of key in getting out of very awkward like deck states. So the deck really does kind of like suffer in how do you like course correct when your deck isn't in the optimal deck state. How do you like, in a sense, force it back into a more optimal deck state? And a lot of them hinge on the Futaba Fukajiro to do that, or like spamming the level 1 My combo. But even then, like, if you don't mill through your deck, like when it's in an awkward state, if you don't mill it back into a decently like not compressed, but a decent deck state, it's very hard to recover and regain control of the game. And that's something I've noticed with the deck. It's like the minute the deck's the deck state is thrown off from being a very stable and compressed to a very decompressed deck, it's very easy to kind of like sneak in so much damage and rush them. And that's the thing about this deck, is like the minute you can successfully rush them in damage, you pretty much have them. So it's kind of interesting to see that. And one Nikkei did top, which was the door standby list, and it's pretty standard. Once again, I encourage you guys to check the deck list below. Weiss Tea Time, like Avis from Weiss Tea Time, really does a good job at kind of documenting collecting all the deck lists and the data. I know there's quite a few decks that haven't been recorded, but there's quite a bit. Like there was an 8 standby Atla avatar that made it to 9th place. There was a Pixar deck that was in 13th place. Not surprisingly, Slime this was not a Slime day for them compared to the last few seasons where they actually did pretty well. And I think it's just because that consistency hit with the deck really did matter. So I could see the deck I'm not surprised the deck didn't do well, because I think the hitting of the 1-0 searcher for the 2-1 Miron really does a number to the deck. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, it makes the deck very inconsistent because of that. So ultimately what ends up happening is that now Slime has to find ways to like spam successfully try field the 2-1, and if not, how do you like play out of it? So like I'm almost tempted to think that maybe Slime has to rethink their game plan, because I think the 2-1 is, I'm not saying that it's bad, but I think it's not as viable as it was in the past, because now that we lost that 1-0, we're, I think, trying to force that game plan is making it harder to succeed in the current metagame, which is all about like compressing and decompressing. And it feels like Slime might have to pivot. I don't know yet. I'm gonna be experimenting with that deck, hence why I haven't put it in my playtest rotation for this upcoming season, because I feel like the deck needs a lot more time, like just in the workshop, because I think there is a way for the Miron to work, but if, let's say, the metagame develops past it, we might have to as Slime players think about like just like temporarily benching that Miron and looking towards a different game plan, because honestly I can kind of see where like with Japan, Slime is still strong because they have that 1-0 that searches out the 2-1, but because we're forced to pick, it makes it very awkward, and I think that was like the best hit that they did for the deck. So I think that's about it for Slime. I will be talking about in the next video about the new sets that are coming out for that was announced at Worlds, because I do think there's some interesting implications. So if you want me to talk about that, please leave a comment below and I'll gladly like just speak with you guys about it. But this is Platinum Point. I hope you guys like this discussion and this analysis, because I do think we are in an interesting summer season, as well as the next BCS is going to be very interesting, and I'm kind of curious how the like Bunny Girl Senpai, how Bunny Girl Senpai, Slime, Nikkei, and even Ruby How I'm surprised that Ruby didn't top, so I'm kind of curious what's going to happen. How many of us are going to have to go back into the workshop and actually make meaningful adjustments? So we'll have to wait and see. So don't forget to, again, rate, comment, subscribe, false crack that like button, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out and stay on point, YouTube.